Okay, today we are learning about the midpoint. Okay, just think about the word midpoint. What does that mean to you? The middle, exactly. That's exactly what it means. So when you're looking for the midpoint, that literally means the point in the middle. Okay, excuse me, the point in the middle of two other points. I'm going to abbreviate points there. Okay, so if I've got a point here and a point here, and I want to find the very middle of them between them. Let's think about this. Let's say I was going to count to 100, but I wanted to stop and take a break after the middle number. We probably all know what the middle number is. If I'm starting at 0 and I'm going to 100, right? What would be the middle number? 50, right? From 0 to 100. Are y'all all with me? From 0 to 100, the middle number would be 50, right? If you didn't know that, how did he know that? How would you explain to somebody, the middle of 100, or the middle from 0 to 100 is 50? How would you explain that to somebody? Not exactly. You're guessing. Okay. Well, what led you to that number? Come on, think about this. Half of 100 is 50. He's right.
50 plus 50.
Okay, so if the first half is 50 and the second half is 50 more, then 50 plus 50 is 100. So in other words, 100 divided by 2 is 50. Okay, so when you are finding the middle of something, you are halving it, basically. You're halving it. Okay, so let's look at these two examples right here. Are going to be really easy to do. Okay, don't even need a formula. If this is point A and this is point B, and I want to find the middle between those two, you can probably visualize where the middle is going to be. Can you not? Right here. Now, technically, this is not just 2. This point right here is 0, 0. This point right here is 4, 0. This point is 2, 0. But the way that you do that, now this one's easy to visualize, but how far is it from point A to point B total? Can y'all tell how far, what the distance between these 2 points is? 4, right? The distance between these 2 points is 4. So what's half of 4? 2. So that means my halfway mark is going to be 2 units from here, 2 units from here, so that would be this one right here. So my midpoint would be right here. With me? Okay, point C and D, this is a little bit trickier, not really, just because these have been moved up a little bit. But the first question is, how far apart are these 2 points? Count the blocks between them. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So how far apart are they? 4 units, right? So if I wanted to find the middle, what's half of 4? 2 again, so I'm going to go up 2 points, 1, 2, and then it should also be 2 points from this one, 1, 2. Okay, so again, my middle point would be right here. Now this time, D started at 0, 1, and C is at 0, 5. Well, the midpoint here is at 0, 3. Think of it like this. From 1 to 5, the middle number is 3. Okay, now, just like before, whenever my points are straight up and down like this, or straight left and right like this, horizontal, it's pretty easy to count. That's not always going to be the case. Just like before, if my points are slanted at all, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to count. So that's where this formula comes in. Okay, I need everybody to pay attention because you guys are not looking at the board and that is making me angry. So, here's the formula because, again, if you didn't think this was easy, the formula is not going to be easy. So, pay attention. So, my midpoint, first of all, a point has an x and it has a y. So, I'm going to leave that blank. It's going to have an x value and a y value. Okay, to find it, what you need to do is you need to add your x's together. So you're going to take the x value here and the x value here. You're going to add them together. x plus x, and then you're going to divide by 2. Do we remember that this symbol here means divide? Okay, so you're going to add your x's together and you're going to divide by 2. To find the y coordinate, you are going to add your y's together and divide by 2. This right here is known as the midpoint formula. Okay, so whatever you do, whenever you add your x's together and divide by 2, that is going to give you your x coordinate. And then whenever you add your y's together and divide by 2, that's going to give you your y coordinate, and then you're going to have a point. Okay, so when we're talking about midpoint, it is a point on the graph, meaning it has an x and a y. Okay? Now you can do this with or without a graph. On these first couple of examples here, it looks like I've got a graph. So, let's look at example 1. First thing I want to do is I want to just put the points t and v on my graph. So I'm going to start with t. It is at -2, -3. We go to the x-axis first, -2, and then we go down to -3. That is point t. And then I'm going to do v. If my first number is 0, that means I don't go left or right. I stay here. And then if my second number is 3, I'm going up to 3. So the question is, I want to know what is the exact middle, the middle point between these two. And again, you can probably visualize exactly where it's going to be. Somewhere in here probably, right? Wouldn't you say that looks like about the middle? Okay, so somewhere in here. So to find the midpoint, we're going to take this formula. Again, I want everybody to look at this. You add the x's together and divide by 2. You add the y's together and you divide by 2. So I want to wait till we do it and then maybe it will. Alright, so on this point, this is my x and this is my y, right? And on this one, this is my x and this is my y, right? Okay, so to do the formula, we're going to take the x's and we're going to add them together. I'm going to do -2 plus 0. And I'm going to divide by 2. Let's go ahead and do that part before we even do the y. Everybody know how to type that in the calculator? You should. Okay, so to type this in, this is basically a fraction. To type in a fraction, you do alpha, y equals, hit enter, -2 plus 0, and then divided by 2. And it gives you -1. That means my x coordinate is -1. Now let me show you real quickly some different ways you can type this in. You can type it in as a fraction. You can type it in like this. You can do -2 plus 0, hit enter, and then divide by 2. Gives you the same answer. What happens if we do -2 plus 0 divided by 2 and we type it in all at once? It gives us the wrong answer. I repeat, I need everybody to see this. You cannot type it in this way. -2 plus 0 divided by 2. If you type it in one line, the calculator does it incorrectly. Okay? You can type in the top, hit enter, and then divide by 2, or you can type it in as a fraction, which is what it looks like on your paper. Alright, so we got -1. That's my x coordinates. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a comma between here because my ordered pair always has a comma between them. And I'm going to do the same thing with my y's. I'm going to add the y's together. Well, this one is -3. And I'm going to add it to my other y, which is +3. And then I'm going to divide by 2. Anybody remember why we're dividing by 2? Because that's how you find half of something. You divide it by 2. Okay, so to type this in the calculator, you can either type it in as a fraction, which is alpha, y equals, hit enter, -3 plus 3 divided by 2. It gives me 0. Or I could do -3 plus 3, hit enter, divide by 2, it gives me 0. Okay, so that means my y coordinate is 0. So what this means, this is my midpoint. My midpoint is negative 1, 0, and I want to show you on the graph. Does everybody know where negative 1, 0 is at? We start here, we go to negative 1, and then 0 means we do nothing. So boom, that is the middle. Can you visualize that? Does it look like the middle between these 2 points? If I were to connect these, you don't have to connect them, but if I were to connect them, does that look like the middle? You bet it does. Okay? Questions? All right, let's look at example 2. First thing I want to do is I want to graph these points, x and y. So x is at negative 3, positive 3. We're going to go this way and then up. That is x. And then y is at 1, 0. That would be go over to 1 and then you go nowhere. So that is my y. Now you can draw a line if you want to. Doesn't really matter. I'm looking for the middle of that line, okay? Now, obviously it's going to be somewhere around here, I believe. Somewhere in that area. Can't really tell exactly where. That's where the formula comes in. All right, everybody ready? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our x's together. And you should do this. You should put an x and a y over your coordinates just so you don't mess up. So I'm going to add my x's together. That would be negative 3 plus 1 divided by 2. Let's do that one first. Type in a fraction. You're going to do negative 3 plus 1 divided by 2. I got negative 1. So that's my first number. Comma. Now what are we doing? Doing the y's. That would be 3 plus 0 divided by 2. Let's see what that gives us. We got this 3 over 2. That's what it should have given you. So if you type in 3 divided by 2, that is the same thing as 1.5. I would prefer this be a decimal. Let's talk about that. What does 1.5 mean? It means 1.5. Okay, so what that means is on the graph, it's going to be kind of in a weird spot. So let's find this point on the graph. First number is negative 1, so we go to negative 1. The second number is 1.5, which means we go up to 1, and then we go up a half unit more, which happens to be right there. You see how it's directly between 1 and 2 on the y-axis? That would be 1.5. So does this look like the middle of that line? It does to me too. So just FYI, a lot of your numbers are going to be 0.5. You're not going to get any other decimal other than 0.5 for this. Okay, let's do example 3. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plot my points. Negative 5, 1 would be here. And then 3, 1. Now, what do you notice about these 2 points? They form a straight line. So in this case, is it possible that we could just count instead of doing the formula? How many spaces are between these? This is a total of 8 units long, right? Everybody agree? 8 units long? Well, what's half of 8? 8 divided by 2, that's how you find half. What's half of 8? 4. So what that means is my midpoint is going to be 4 between these. So you can pick either one and count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 would be right here. So the question is, what's the coordinates for this point? What's my ordered pair going to be? My first number is what? Negative 1, and then on the y-axis it is at positive 1. So instead of doing the formula, in this case, you can count. You also could have done the formula, and it would have given you the same thing. Counting's faster maybe in this case, if you got a graph. If you don't got a graph, which that leads me to example 4. Now, I want you to know this. You might think, oh, no graph, this is going to be hard. To me, it's actually easier because I don't have to worry about plotting anything. I just go straight to my formula. Okay, so check this out. Formula stays the same. You're always going to add your x's together, which in this case, that would be negative 1 plus 5, and then you're going to divide by 2. Let's do that real quick. Negative 1 plus 5, and then divide by 2, and I got positive 2. Can anybody verify that? Okay, So that gives me my x. Now I need to do my y's. Check this out. I'm always adding them together. 1 plus -5 divided by 2. Okay, this time I got -2. Alright, that means my y coordinate is -2. In this case, since there is no graph, I can't really visualize to check that it's right. I'm just going to hope that I did that right. Okay, I could go graph it and make sure, but if I didn't give you a graph, then I don't want you to do that. Alright, how about y'all try example 5 real quick. Just take the formula and find your midpoint. Okay, so that one probably didn't take very long to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our x's. That would be 2 and -6. And divide by 2. So let's do that real quick. Two plus -6. Don't forget your negatives. And then divide by 2. That gives me -2 for my x coordinate. And then for your y's, we're going to add those. -1 plus 0 divided by 2. And we get -1/2. You can write it like this, or maybe you typed it in like this and then divided by 2, -1/2. Either way, these two are both -1/2. Okay? So, all right. Now let's look at example 6 and 7 here, where we've got the graphs. So, there's two ways to do this. I can figure out what these points are and then just use the midpoint formula. Or if you're a very visual person, you can count, but you have to be very careful, okay? So example 6, for example, from this one to this one. Obviously, I don't know how long this distance is diagonally, but I could go up and over. Now, from here to here, that is up 4 blocks or 4 units. And then from here to here, that is also 4 units. So midpoint, we discussed earlier, means half, right? So what's half of 4? That would be 2, right? And then what's half of this one? Also 2. So instead of going up 4 and over 4, we half that and we go up 2 and over 2, and that puts us at this spot right here. So that is our midpoint. Okay? So on a graph, you can do that visually. Now the question is, what is the coordinates for this point? So I need to know that is -3, -3. So that is my midpoint. Okay. Example 7 is a little harder to do. So I'm going to do this with using the formula. So I've got this point is -5, 5. So first, to use your formula, you need to know your points. One of them is -5, +5. And then this one would be +2, -5. So these are my points. And I'm going to use the formula. So I'm going to add my x's. That would be -5 plus 2, and then divide by 2. Let me do that real quick. -5 plus 2 divided by 2. I get -1.5. Okay. And I'm going to add my y's, which would be 5 plus -5 divided by 2. 5 plus -5 divided by 2. We get 0. So, on the graph, let's find that. -1.5, that means -1.5. So that means just past -1. So here's -1. And then half of another block would be right here. And then 0 means we stay right where we're at. So you could tell that that right there is the middle. If you do this visually, if you count from here down, that looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks. So half of 10 would be 5. So if I count down 5 instead, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that puts us on this line right here, which boom, there's the middle. The question is, can you tell visually what this point is? The formula tells you what it is. Otherwise, if you didn't have this answer right here, you'd have to say, okay, -1, -2, what's right in the middle of -1 and -2? That's -1.5. So, anyways, I would probably use the formula on most of these. If it's one that's pretty easy like this one, you could count that one. All right, pause the video for a second, and I want you guys to try example 8 and 9, and then I will go over those. All right, so just to go over those real fast, I'm going to add my x's. -4 plus 5 divided by 2. Let's see what we get. Remember, -4 plus 5, hit enter, and then divide by 2. It is 0.5, or in other words, 1/2. Again, if you don't do this in 2 separate steps, if you type it in and then divide by 2, it will give you the wrong answer. You have to do it in 2 steps, or you can type it in as a fraction like we were doing before. Okay, for the y's, we're going to do -1 plus 3 divided by 2. And that one gives you 1. So there's my midpoint. Remember, all of your midpoints is going to have an x, comma, y. Okay, example 9 real quick. We're going to do -4 plus 2. That is my x's. Divided by 2. So I get -1. And then I'm going to do my y's, and those are 2 plus 2 divided by 2. And we get 2. And there you go. Okay, on the worksheet that you guys are fixing to do, hang on just a second. Okay, on the worksheet you guys are fixing to do, on these on number 1, it says to plot the points, draw the line segment connecting them, and then use the midpoint formula. If you don't want to use the midpoint formula, if you can, I will allow you on the front to just do it visually. But what that means is, for this first one, -5, 1. For my second point, 1, -1. If you can tell by counting, then you can do it that way, but you just have to be very careful, okay? So, if you can tell on this one, from here to here, that's 2. Well, what's half of 2? That would be 1. And then from here to here, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And half of 6 is 3. So I'm going to go over 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go up 1. That puts me right here at this point. And again, your answer for all of these is going to be an ordered pair. Every single one of these, you should have an x and a y. For this particular one, this is -2, 0. Again, you don't have to do it this way. If you want to, use the formula. It's going to give you the same answer, okay? So for example, -5 plus 1 divided by 2. Let me see what that gives me. -5 plus 1 divided by 2. I get -2, which is the first number. And then my y's, 1 plus -1 divided by 2. I get 0, which, sorry, this one was -2, which you can do with the formula, which I got the same answer, okay? So again, on this front page, if you want to do it visually, you can. If you want to just go straight to the formula, you can do that as well. On the back, there are no graphs, so use the formula, boom, that should be pretty quick. Okay.